If your firing system uses unshielded twisted pair cable, this is part 1 of a 2-part video series on repairing cable. In this first video, we'll go through replacing the plug. In the second video, we'll look at doing an emergent splice of a damaged cable. Okay, so we've got a damaged cable here, and we're going to need to repair it. For this one here, we're simply just going to remove the damaged end. Now with good cables, the latch that's on the plug, they can be pretty strong. This is a fairly good cable. I'll show you how difficult it is to actually break it off. And actually what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to cut it off here. When that locking latch is gone, it's really not going to want to stay connected. There may be some friction fit still there on some of these jacks, but it's not going to want to stay connected. In a rush, if you needed to, you could probably connect that here. Take some scab wire, right, and jerry rig some sort of holder on your rail, right, to keep it in there. But that's not a real elegant solution, and certainly not something that you want to do long term. Now, many cables have protectors on their boots for that lasp to keep it from catching on things. You see, this is one version here. Here's another version here. It prevents that latch from getting caught on things and getting ripped off. Okay, we got our damaged cable here, and we're going to repair it. So, I've got my RJ45 repair kit. And we're going to go through some of these items here. And I just keep this all together with everything I need, even though I really haven't had to use it, except for the first time this year. So you got your RJ45 tool, your pliers here. You can pick this up at any hardware store and order it online. In this bag here, I've got the replacement jacks. I also have a bag of protective boots and some small zip ties. So that's what I keep here. And this is a testing device. Now I think I bought this for $6 or $7 on Amazon. There's lots of different options out there. Okay, for our demonstration here, we're going to repair this small section here first. So we're going to cut this nice and clean. Right, and just toss that burnt part. And you can see we've got the 8 wires in there. Now we're going to cut back the shielding, or the outer layer here of the cable. And this one actually also has a ground for the shell, which we're not going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that back. Okay, now when we have the wires laid out like this, we need to figure out the correct arrangement of those wires, or the correct pin out, when we insert them into the plug. The only thing that really matters for the firing systems is that the pin out is the same on either end of the cable. But you'll see in terms of RJ45, there's 2 conventions, industry conventions. There's the T568A and 568B. And I've found that most of mine are the B version. If we look at the pin out here, going from left to right as you're looking at it, it's brown, green, blue, and orange. And you can't really see the stripes or the barber poles if you just look at the solids, and that's a B configuration. So we're going to arrange this end in the same manner. The other thing I want to point out real quick is that it doesn't matter which end that you're on. And see if you can see this here. If this is a good cable here, haven't torched it, the pinout of the ends lay out the same, right? So as you're looking at it, on the left is brown, green, blue, and orange. If you were to consider plugging these in end to end, you'll see that the colors don't match up, right? So don't try to wrap yourself around the axle and think about swapping the pinout arrangement depending on which end that you're on. They should be the same regardless of what end you're looking at. All right, so we're going to put this in this plug here with the tab pointed down. And so we're going to have brown here, solid brown on the left, or striped brown. Then we're going to have solid green. And then this is where the B version gets a little bit different, right? We're now, rather than a striped green, we're going to have the striped blue. So there's our striped blue. And then we're going to have solid blue, and then the striped green, and then lastly we get to our oranges, which is solid and then striped. So I'm going to try to fan these out so you can see that here. All right. So that should be the B version. Now for demonstration purposes here, I'm going to switch the two middle blues so that we go solid green, then solid blue, and then we go to our stripes. So this is incorrect here. We're going to just do this for this demonstration. Okay. Now what we're going to do is try to get these all in a nice flat setup here next to each other. Sometimes I feel like you need smaller fingers. I'm sure people have some tricks for doing this, but get them like that, all nice tight next to each other. I'm going to take our tool, and they usually have a blade, and every tool may be different, but for trimming those out nice and clean. All right, once they're all trimmed nice, clean, and even, now we're going to insert those, trying to keep them in plane, into the plug. And the plug has some grooves that all the wires should fairly easy slide into, and then you just want to push it all the way in. And you want to make sure that the outer sleeving is past this point right here, because this is when you put it in the tool, that's going to push down and hold it as a strain relief. So when you have that pushed all the way in, this tool here has some jaws that come up, or some teeth that come up, and they push the blades here into the wires, into the conductor. So we'll put this in the tool and we just give it a good squeeze. And that's that. It's pushed the blades down into the wires, and it's pushed this plastic tab down in as a strain relief. So that's how we do a repair. So we know this one is purposely hosed up because I swapped two of the wires. Some of the systems you might be able to test that. The fireTEK system has integrated LEDs, so you could plug it in and look at the LEDs and see if it's working. You could also do individual testing, multimeter, or even plugging in some sort of igniter and checking on your module or your remote whether or not you're getting the expected continuity. When I picked up this tool here, there's a bunch of different versions and colors out there. It feels fairly cheap. It's got a couple batteries, it's got a 9-volt battery in it, and it's detachable. So if you had to do long cable runs and checks, like in a house or a building or something, you could do that. But essentially, all it does is it closes the circuit, and these LEDs should light up in unison if you have the correct wiring. So plug one end in to the master. Plug the other end in here to the remote, and this is the one we cut the tab off of, so I'm just going to hold it, and you turn it on. And these lights should trace together top to bottom, and you can see that they do not do that because we hosed up some of the wiring. So this is a bad cable. So we know this is a bad cable. We built it as a bad cable. Just so I don't accidentally use this, I'm going to go ahead and just cut that off. All right. Now what we wanted to do was fix the larger end of this cable, and we're going to fix this one correctly. So in this case, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this boot on, and I've already trimmed back some of the wires here. We're going to slide this boot on and just get it out of the way for now. All right, so the process is the same. We're going to organize our wires here for the pinout, but we're going to do it correctly this time, and this is the same cable. It's the B-type pinout. So we'll get these all bunched up nice and tightly together. We kind of pinch down on them. All right, we'll clean up the ends. And we'll slide them into our connector. And I can see I've got two that have already twisted. It is nice that these connectors are clear. All right, I think we got it here. We'll slide this in. And it looks like we got our blue and our greens correct. Push that in all the way nice and tight. Again, the same thing here. We're going to use our tool here to press that in place. Just the one big squeeze. And that's it. All right, we'll test it. Time of reckoning. Here we go. Let's see what happens. On. Oh, look at that. It looks like we got it done correctly this time. All right, so cheap little nice tester here for fixing your cables. Highly recommended. You can also test new cables with it too. All right, now what we want to do is slide this boot up. All right, and so it goes over that tab to protect it from getting snagged on anything. And then what I like to do is right behind this, get a small zip tie, because these things will slide back. And you could tape it, but then tape gets kind of messy. Small zip tie, cinch it up right behind that boot, and then just trim the end. There you go. And you got a repaired cable ready for whatever system you may be using that uses these cables. I want to point out only now did I lose continuity on the rail.